Hi, this is Kim Watson. Welcome to this week's Outlook. Before I get on to the technicals, just to look at the fundamentals. Of course, this week is key, and we keep getting asked the question, what do you think is going to happen when the UK triggers Article 50? Now, of course, if the date was not known and there was nothing else known about it, it might be a bit of a surprise to the markets. But the government quite carefully let out last week the date that it will actually be triggered now, which is this coming Wednesday. Now, precise timing I'm not sure of. I believe it's sometime after 9 a.m., which gives us a whole day. But when it's triggered, and we'll see how the pound reacts accordingly. It's pretty priced in the market that the UK is going to trigger Article 50. So the question is, will it actually continue and take a dip, or will we see a rally? Often you see on the news, you buy on the rumor, sell on the news, or sell on the rumor, buy on the news. Often occurs the closing of the short positions often occur just after the event when it comes out as expected. There's little to be unexpected about this particular news. Now that we could, and we most likely will be hearing Theresa May speak throughout the day, we'll probably hear the opposite numbers in Europe speak at some point once they've received the letter. Now, it is going as a letter. It's not going to be taken by a member of the Parliament. So it is, as I say, just being posted as quietly as possible, effectively, and because at the end of the day, it doesn't all end on Wednesday. There's a 2-year process, and up until that point, the UK remains as part of the European Union. Okay, right, so that's that. So as my son would say, when you ask the question about something, or in other words, I don't know. Okay, right, moving on then. Looking at the other fundamentals that are due out this week. And later today, we have Bank of Canada governor speaking at 3:10, but the actual data will come out 15 minutes before then, the speech. So just be in mind that the markets may well move at 2:55. So as opposed to 3:10. Aside of that, then there are other speakers this week and other events. There's not a lot of data coming out. There is the US final GDP coming out on Thursday, which it does vary from one reading to another, so that may create some volatility. 1:30 Thursday. Outside of that, there's of course the UK details, but aside of that, there's very little else. It's GDP on Friday for Canada. That is a regular event. It occurs on a monthly basis. It may move 10, 15 pips, maybe 20, but it's not a major mover for the Canadian dollar normally. We do get some volatility around it all the same. So that's pretty much it for this week in what could be a noisy, quiet week. Quiet in terms of the normal numbers coming out, but plenty of chatter going on around about Article 50. So let's look at the technicals. I'm starting off with the euro dollar, and as you can see, this is a weekly chart. We have pushed up, broken. We closed above the 21. We've now moved up above the 34 on a gap. So we will be looking at that gap and seeing what will come from there. So we've run into at the moment the daily 200 moving average. We've got the gap below, which may well get filled, and we've also got a weekly pivot below us at the moment. So at this stage, let's put the monthly pivots on there as well. You can see we're well up above the monthly R1 here. It's put in on a short term. It's put a shooting star in. May get the gap fill, but the trend overall remains to the upside. As I said, from the weekly perspective, it's above that 34. Maybe it will come below that, but if it can close above that, well, then that's just another step in a further move north here. Other resistance, key resistance, but we passed all near-term resistance here, so we're sort of at the mercy of maybe, well, even the previous lows are being hit, so we're sort of more at the mercy of pivots, maybe the R2 coming up there at 109,680, maybe the R3, and then you sort of run into these prior sort of spikes at 113. Quite some way up yet, though. Of course, that's looking well ahead for this week. I would be looking at resistance in terms of that, maybe into that R2, but we'll see how we run. Now, from this stage here, we still, as I say, if it starts selling off, if it breaks the weekly pivot, of course, we've got to consider any short side movements here. If we break that sort of level, well, we could be starting to break a trend line that's running across the lows there, but that in itself may give some support on the way to that weekly pivot. So things to watch for at the moment, mostly bullish, but short term, possibly bearish until we've seen that gap fill at least. Okay, that's the euro dollar. Let's have a look at the pound. Let's look at the weekly first. Just go onto a weekly chart here. So let's just take that regression channel out of the way and get rid of the monthly pivots for a moment and look at where we're sitting here. So, well, it's recovered pretty well over the last 2 weeks. The third week, obviously, still a live candle and pushing up relatively strong, looking to push above that 34. Maybe the markets are already saying, well, we've already heard the news last week. We'll get on with the market, getting the pound priced properly where it should be priced as opposed to the artificial lows. Although that said, we're probably not too far off of a fair price on the pound. So, well, yes, it could rally as the dollar sells off. There's this big Trump effect. It's obviously been shown that Trump isn't getting the weighting behind his expected changes as expected, and we may see the US market sell off, in which case the dollar may come short as well, and well, this again could affect the pound and the euro quite substantially. So from where we're sitting here then, at the moment it's looking relatively bullish on this weekly basis. Coming down to the dailies, it's certainly looking edging more bullish than anything else. It's got a good bar up today. At the moment is starting to push back up from a monthly. Let's just put the monthly pivots on there so you can see where we are. Yesterday we ran into the R1, had a bit of reaction off that, but we could be heading back towards this daily 200, which ties in quite nicely with prior highs there. That was a sort of a pivotal area in the past. And that's been a pivotal area for several months now, well over 6 months. So approaching 6 months at least. So that well could be a point on the pound. Of course, tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll see how things react from the news, and well, we could see this 200 blown out the water potentially. Okay, moving on, dollar yen. Now, dollar yen, we've as expected to some degree. I was a little bit expecting possibly more of a downside, but we've seen this move down. Let's just go to the weekly pivots for a moment. Monthly pivot even. There we go. We've seen this move down. It's sitting on the weekly 200 as I speak. Or has been sitting on it. It's had a little bit of a bounce back towards that weekly pivot. Some of this move may be some repatriation. I've talked about it in the last couple of weeks. In fact, I've talked about it quite a lot because there was quite a big expectation that there would be more yen repatriated to the end of the year. Well, the end of financial year, of course, is this coming Thursday rather. So. Or Friday even, so yeah, Friday. So that takes away the strength it may have been getting from anything else. However, we're seeing strength elsewhere, and we have on this weekly picture. I mean, over the last week, it just confirmed it broke the prior lows there, and may suggest further strength anyway. We'll see how we run, but this 200, as I say, at the moment providing support. If we go to the dailies. on the week. Oops, wrong ones. Don't want those pivots on. Let's put on the monthly pivot, see where we are. Dailies again. I talked about 200 on the pound. It could be a target area potentially on the yen. We've still got some time left within this month. It could sell off there. It's as I said, with little a month less left and a bit of divergence on the daily. Perhaps we may be just flattening out here. Maybe all the repatriation of funds has already happened, but we'll see. There may be a end of month flurry. Which may bring it down stronger, but at the moment, still overall looking bearish on this chart here, bullish for the yen, of course, but may well be, as I say, how we're going to continue as we run through next month. Okay, let's look at the Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar's been certainly weak. It's shown some weakness as we run through. And it's again last week it ran into those prior highs. Let's talk about pivotal area at 77, and that sort of 77 area. It has not managed to break that yet. Now, at some point, it may well do so, but it's not looking good at the moment. And when you come down to the daily pivots, it's looking no better. It's certainly bearish at the moment. Now it's got an untouched weekly pivot above, which, well, any rallies that would provide a target. At the moment, it's looking like it's slipping back off towards that 200 moving average, but we'll see how we do there. But for now, for me, as I say, I remain relatively bearish. Not that I trade the Aussie dollar very much. Okay, Canadian dollar. Okay, Canadian dollar's been quite messy of late on the dailies, and it's one of those that just goes off my radar when it starts getting all choppy from an intraday basis. I really don't like trading it. I mean, yes, it's got some movement intraday, but you can see from this weekly chart, it's pretty consolidated in the range that we're sitting in from week after week, and it's not really given us much to play with. It makes the intraday signals more difficult to read, so I tend to leave it a little bit more. From a swing basis, well, it does look, even on this picture, that maybe it will, from the weekly point of view from last week, maybe it was looking to pitch up to the pitch further up again. With the oil slipping off, of course, that may well help the case as we look through here. We're already above the weekly pivots, already run through that. It's looking pretty bullish from a weekly perspective, but in a bullish chop effectively. I'm not really trusting these prior highs here. If it can break and close above that prior high from the 22nd, maybe it has some more upside. Likewise, we can easily draw a trend line across the lows here and, well, maybe become more bearish on a daily basis, maybe on it more so if it starts breaking that level. But even if it breaks that level with the chop it's seen before, there's sort of that key range, and it may be much safer if you were looking on the short side and waiting for it to break that daily 200 if it does. Very choppy, and as I say, for intraday, I'm less interested in it. Okay, we'll just look at the S&Ps and look at what's going on here. We've been seeing some selling off. Let's just go to the weeklies first, and in fact, let's look at the proper S&P. So this is what occurred. We did actually get a bit of a turnaround yesterday after, it snapped back down quite quickly. Bit of a turnaround towards the end yesterday. Has come down to the daily, so ended up gapping and moving back towards that weekly pivot, which it may well do. Now, just when it gets to that sort of area, it may run into resistance. I'm looking and wondering whether we haven't seen the end of the downside yet. It's just a bit of noise in the early stages of what may be a bigger retrace. Now, I think as the market factors in that Trump's not going to necessarily have an easy road, maybe it wouldn't be too much of a surprise to see it heading back eventually for its weekly 50 and these prior highs that we saw last year. So maybe that would be a reasonable retrace in this overall move. Even then, relatively modest to this market. So there's certainly potential for that with what we're seeing. But any rallies, well, it won't take too much to run back up to those highs at 2400. Okay, that's it for me. Hope you have a great week. Bye for now.